Oh, hey, Scott.
Hey, thanks for joining me, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Oh man. So I tell people to try to scratch an itch. That's usually why people get into entertainment is because they're trying to fill some gap that's missing for them. They see stuff that isn't being done that could be done that has a lot of potential. And you are an audio engineer and a nature freak. And so then you decided to start a podcast about wildlife.
Yeah. There's other audio engineer nature freaks out there, but there's not um others that are interviewing. What doesn't exist
Yeah.
is a podcast where people that have been attacked by animals are interviewed and asked questions of of the details of their experience. And that doesn't exist, and I really want that to exist, so I'm making it happen.
That makes sense. It's and so what do you get out of that you don't get? There are other animal attack podcasts, right?
There are, yeah, there's a few of where they'll read through accounts, but they're depending on the person who wrote the article, or they're depending on the person who heard it from the person who had it happen. And some of them are actually pretty good, but this one is direct from the source of the person that was inside the jaws of a shark, that was inside the jaws of a grizzly bear, or all different kinds of really crazy experiences. And I asked them directly what was going on and how they got there and how they got out of it. And hearing the story from them directly, nothing compares to that. That's the best.
So how many interviews have you done so far?
I've done close to 20 so far,
Wow.
officially. And then my whole life, I love finding people that have been attacked by anything and hearing their story. So even before I was recording them, this is like something that I cannot get enough of. I want every detail. I want to know what was going through their mind, what what the temperature was, all these little details, and to paint a full picture that I never read in a news or the media accounts of these stories. They just don't include the details that I want to know.
Yeah, and your audio background is you have a degree in audio engineering. You've worked with Elton John and you've worked on Dead Redemption 2 and you've worked on um Grand Theft Auto 5, right?
Yeah, a
And
bunch of video games, movies, and albums. Yeah.
and
So
so and so like that's the cool thing. You let me listen to a sample episode, and that was a really exciting thing about it was to hear that passion for audio come through, because like so many podcasts I can't really listen, they're hard to listen to or they're hard to hear, and this just sounds like an NPR produced thing. What are you using, like special technology to do it, or
yeah, I'm definitely using my experience. I'm trying to keep it simple overall, which I think works for the experience. Whenever I listen to a podcast, I get really disinterested really quickly. So I'm using my short attention span to edit this podcast so it stays exciting and stays relevant and keeps you engaged, like literally every second of every podcast. There's no boring stuff. Whenever I listen to it, I'm like, yeah, this is what I want to know. Like it makes me excited even after I've heard it a bunch of times.
that's rad. And you're using like audio music composers that are like badass, right?
Yeah, some pretty heavy hard hitters. I kind of told them what I wanted. It's some guys that worked on a lot of cool projects with me, including the Rockstar games like Red Dead Redemption 2 and Grand Theft Auto 5. Um, and I told them I didn't ask them to do it. I was explaining to them what I was working on with this podcast. And then the next day, composer just texts me. He's like, "Hey, can me and Josh do the score for your podcast?" And I was like, "How is that even like a question that has a no answer?" Like, so I called him up. I was like, I can't really afford to pay you like what you would get paid. He's like, it's cool. We think it's a cool project and we're bored. We want to do it. So it because of the pandemic, it just kind of lined up. I don't know how, but and the music that they are coming up with is killer. It is
Nice.
so cool.
The thing I don't understand is, why do you like, I don't really like nature. I don't really like, I'm kind of terrified of Mother Nature, and I try to stay in a safe place as much as possible. But you like to, I don't, you don't go, do you go for dangerous situations? Do you like that? Or is there something else that's driving you into the dangerous situations?
Uh, so everything's dangerous, you know, like getting in a car is dangerous. Um, I don't think I purposely seek out dangerous situations. A lot of my friends and family members would probably disagree because they know me. But I really, I love the experience of being there and being present for the crazy things that happen in the wild, especially when like a predator is destroying something, another living being. Being able to witness that is pretty amazing to me.
What's an
So,
example of
you
that?
know, it's all about risk management.
What's an example of watching a predator destroy something?
Oh, I got one that's kind of unbelievable. I was working out in the Channel Islands National Park as a kayak guide, and there was a bull sea lion that grabbed a yellowtail, which is this massive, like 4 or 5 foot long fish. It looks like a tuna. And the bull sea lion is probably 600, 700 pounds, just this massive, massive animal. And he's working with his buddies, and they're actually corralling these yellowtail into a corner, like this little sea cave. They're corralling them in there in a smaller area so where they can grab them easier. So he grabs this yellowtail, and I'm on a, you know, a tour, leading a tour with these kids and families, and the sea lion comes up out of the water with this yellowtail in its mouth and just starts thrashing it. The yellowtail was so big he couldn't get it down its throat. So what he had to do was whip his head back and forth and rip it into smaller pieces. So as he's whipping his head back and forth, there is guts and blood and just like all kinds of fish pieces literally hitting my guests, my customers that are out here on the tour, like the full experience, the full nature experience. And that's pretty rare to see. I've seen it twice after being out there for years. But to have one of those experiences is just amazing, you know. Can't even put
Wow,
that into words.
that's so cool. So I think like it's cool to hear your journey in starting this project, because you are, you're putting together your love of audio and your love of nature and these like amazing stories of people. But then, but it's a brand new thing for you to be kind of performing as far as the podcast host and putting together a product like this, a new podcast. It's coming out in a month,
Yeah,
or okay,
pretty soon. Stay
and
tuned.
and so like, what are you experiencing? Like, what what are you experiencing now as you're starting to take this big leap of jumping into a thing that is scratching an itch for you?
Well, for people that don't know, Scott's been helping me out a lot with this. I don't know if you'd consider yourself a producer or coach or whatever, but you've been a huge help and you've been kind of pushing me out to like, you need to get your face out there and be noticeable. That doesn't necessarily come natural for me for being online, but telling people about how amazing nature is and why they should care about it and love it like I do, that comes very natural to me because that's what I do as a kayak guide, wilderness kayak guide on the Channel Islands and in Maui. And so that part comes easy. I love talking about this stuff. Just the making stuff for online content. That's a little more of a struggle so far, but I have a really good coach.
What do you see when somebody, when on a kayak tour, what do you see that um, when they change, when they start to appreciate the thing that is important to you? Like, what is it that's important to you in nature that you want to show people, and what do you see in them when they experience that?
That's the golden moment right there. Whenever you can get somebody to stop arguing with their husband or stop yelling at their kids, or stop thinking about things on the mainland, and like be present for something that's amazing that's happening. Whenever you see them switch over from the usual like caring about stupid crap to caring about nature, there's like a very specific moment, and usually you'll hear like a oh, and that's what I live for. I love that. Yeah.
Can you think of a person
Usually
that
it'll
you
be an animal, or there's maybe the way like the water hits the wall. It'll get, the water will get trap air inside of a cave, and then it comes spewing out like 30 feet sometimes. People see that. You can still be distracted and still care about your stupid stuff, about everything else, and you're present and you're in nature.
wow, that's great. Um, well, it's the Teeth Podcast. You can go to theteeth.com, theteethpod.com, and you have like an announced list for that. People can sign up with their email address. Um, cool, man. I can't wait to hear more updates about what you're working on. That's it.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right. That's it. We did it.